On modern battlefields, survival depends on cover. Soldiers dig trenches, reinforce bunkers, and disappear underground to escape artillery and airstrikes. But what happens when those very defenses become the most dangerous place to hide? What if heat, pressure, and oxygen loss turn bunkers into traps and trenches into sealed chambers? This is not nuclear warfare. This is Russia's TOS-1A heavy flamethrower system. In this video, we will break down how the TOS-1A works, why it is used differently from traditional rocket artillery, and what its presence means for NATO and European military planning from a purely technical and tactical perspective. The TOS-1A is often incorrectly described as a standard multiple launch rocket system. In reality, Russian doctrine classifies it as a heavy flamethrower system, which already tells us how it is meant to be used. Its purpose is not long-range bombardment or infrastructure destruction, but the rapid neutralization of enemy personnel in fortified positions. Unlike traditional artillery, it operates close to the front line and is tightly integrated with ground assaults. This classification explains its short-range, armored protection, and specialized ammunition. Russian military doctrine prioritizes shock, speed, and psychological collapse over prolonged attritional warfare. The TOS-1A was designed to break defensive lines quickly by making positions physically and psychologically uninhabitable. Instead of slowly degrading enemy forces, it aims to create immediate battlefield paralysis. Russian planners assume that once soldiers lose faith in their defenses, resistance collapses rapidly. The system fits neatly into Russia's broader emphasis on decisive tactical momentum. One of the most distinctive features of the TOS-1A is its T-72 tank chassis. This is not an aesthetic choice, but a survivability requirement. The heavy armor protects the launcher from shrapnel, small arms fire, and near-miss artillery impacts. Unlike wheeled rocket systems, the TOS-1A is designed to operate in high-threat zones close to enemy positions. This allows it to support direct assaults rather than remaining a rear-area asset. With a maximum range of roughly 6 kilometers, the TOS-1A appears limited compared to Western MLRS platforms. However, this short range is intentional and tactically advantageous. It allows for tighter rocket dispersion and more concentrated effects on target. The system is optimized for close-range saturation, not long-range precision. In Russian doctrine, range was sacrificed to maximize destructive intensity at decisive points. The real power of the TOS-1A lies in its thermobaric rockets. Unlike conventional high-explosive rounds, thermobaric munitions operate through a fuel-air explosion. First, a cloud of aerosolized fuel is dispersed across the target area. Then, this cloud is ignited, producing extreme heat, prolonged overpressure, and oxygen depletion. This mechanism makes thermobaric weapons uniquely lethal in enclosed and fortified environments. The destruction process occurs in two distinct phases. The initial detonation spreads the fuel mixture into trenches, bunkers, rooms, and tunnels, flowing around obstacles like a gas. The second detonation ignites the cloud, generating sustained pressure rather than a brief blast. This pressure causes severe internal injuries and structural collapse. Unlike fragmentation weapons, the goal is not penetration, but total environmental denial. Traditional military fortifications are designed to absorb shock and block shrapnel. Thermobaric weapons turn these strengths into fatal weaknesses. Enclosed spaces trap heat and pressure, amplifying the weapon's effects. Deeper bunkers result in higher casualty rates rather than improved protection. The TOS-1A effectively weaponizes the defender's own cover. The TOS-1A is not effective in all environments. Its ideal targets include trench networks, urban strongpoints, forested defensive lines, and underground facilities.
These settings restrict airflow and maximize thermobaric pressure effects. Open terrain significantly reduces its lethality. This is why the system is deployed selectively rather than routinely. Unlike traditional artillery that relies on prolonged barrages, the TOS-1A delivers short, overwhelming salvos. A full launch can saturate an entire defensive position within seconds. The objective is immediate collapse, not suppression. Prolonged firing would only increase vulnerability to counter-battery strikes. Speed and surprise are central to its effectiveness. Once a salvo is fired, the TOS-1A becomes a high-priority target. Enemy forces will attempt rapid counter-battery fire, drone strikes, or air attacks. Russian doctrine emphasizes immediate displacement after firing. Mobility is often more important than survivability. The system's success depends on minimizing exposure time. The TOS-1A does not operate blindly. It relies heavily on intelligence, surveillance, and recon assets, particularly drones. These platforms identify enemy fortifications and confirm troop presence before strikes. Accurate targeting is essential due to limited ammunition availability. Post-strike assessment also depends on aerial surveillance to confirm effectiveness. The TOS-1A is never deployed in isolation. Electronic warfare units disrupt enemy communications and sensors. Artillery suppresses potential counter-battery threats. Infantry and armored units exploit the post-strike collapse. The system functions as a decisive enabler within a broader combined arms operation. Thermobaric rockets are complex, heavy, and logistically demanding. They require specialized handling, transport, and storage. Resupplying these munitions under combat conditions is difficult. This limits how frequently the system can be used. As a result, commanders reserve it for critical tactical moments. Due to its battlefield impact, TOS-1A deployment is rarely authorized at low command levels. Its use can significantly alter operational dynamics. Higher-level commanders typically approve fire missions. This reflects the system's value as a scarce, high-impact asset rather than a routine support weapon.
Beyond physical destruction, the psychological impact of the TOS-1A is profound. Survivors often experience panic, disorientation, and loss of cohesion. Units may abandon positions even without direct casualties. Fear of repeated thermobaric strikes erodes morale rapidly. This psychological collapse often accelerates breakthroughs more effectively than sustained fire. After a TOS-1A strike, terrain may appear largely intact from a distance. However, internal damage is severe. Defensive positions are often rendered combat ineffective. Command and control structures are disrupted. This creates ideal conditions for follow-on infantry and armored assaults. NATO does not view the TOS-1A as a strategic or war-winning weapon. However, it is taken seriously at the tactical level. European terrain, with its urban density and fortified zones, mirrors environments where thermobaric weapons are effective. This makes the system relevant in NATO contingency planning. Its presence forces defensive adaptations. NATO relies on persistent ISR, air superiority, and long-range precision fires. Early detection reduces the element of surprise that the TOS-1A depends on. Once located, the system is vulnerable to rapid neutralization. Western counter-battery capabilities significantly limit its survivability. Against NATO, its effectiveness window is narrow. The TOS-1A is not universally effective. Open terrain, dispersed forces, and mobile units reduce its impact. Weather conditions can also affect thermobaric performance. The system is vulnerable during movement and reloading. These limitations prevent it from being a dominant battlefield solution. The TOS-1A is not a game-changing weapon. It is a force multiplier, not a decisive system. Its value lies in collapsing localized defenses quickly. Used correctly, it accelerates breakthroughs. Used incorrectly, it becomes an exposed and costly liability.
European militaries are reassessing traditional fortification concepts. Dispersal, mobility, and redundancy are becoming more important than depth. Urban warfare doctrine is evolving to account for thermobaric threats. The TOS-1A highlights vulnerabilities in static defenses. These lessons are shaping future force planning. The TOS-1A reflects Russia's preference for shock-based, environment denial warfare. It exploits physics, psychology, and terrain rather than precision alone. While counterable, it remains dangerous when used correctly. Understanding both its strengths and limitations is essential. For NATO and Europe, it serves as a warning, not a doomsday weapon. If you found this military analysis valuable, subscribe for more in-depth defense breakdowns. If you have your own perspective on the TOS-1A or modern battlefield strategy, share your thoughts in the comments. And if this video helped you understand today's warfare better, support the channel by liking the video.